Dignitas' turn to ban.
And we're back for game number 2 of this best of 2. Fnatic and Dignitas in an all-Western showdown with major implications, not just for themselves, but for other teams, DK and LGD among them. These teams all fighting it out for 3 of the 4 remaining top slots. In terms of the upper bracket slots are going to be awarded coming out of Group A. Fnatic got down the Dignitas basically, or let me rephrase that. Dignitas ran over Fnatic in Game 1 on the back of a phenomenal play coming out of Fogged. And when I say a phenomenal play, that was just the beginning of the work he did in that match, really just showing off why he is one of the most respected support players in all of the West. Fnatic, though, still in okay shape. Dignitas got the job done and got accomplished what they had to in Game 1, namely they had to win. They have to have a 2-0 victory over Fnatic to give themselves the opportunity to land in one of those top 4 slots that will give them an upper bracket berth. Fnatic, though, on the other hand, they can split just the way things have played out, the way the standings are functioning. They could split this series. So if they're able to get a win here now, Dignitas will be relegated to the lower bracket and Fnatic will move into that slot and vice versa. So all of their hopes, all of their dreams, the idea of not coming into the big stage of Ben Arroyo with your foot half out the door in the lower bracket, all resting on this one game. I'm your host there in AC Chambers, joined by Draskell. And yeah, my friend, I mean, we know how good Dignitas can be when they get a lead, but they really just poured it on Fnatic.
Well, that's true Dignitas style, honestly. That's what they've always been great at. So, like we were talking about, Dignitas, they got to put one more on Fnatic. So if they don't, then they're going to be pretty much leaving their fate up to whether or not DK wins their matches or how those games actually go. Because if they do win one, and Dignitas only win one, then they're pretty much eliminated anyway if they lose to Fnatic here. So still a lot of pressure being put on them, and Fnatic can use that to their advantage. And as I said in the first game, it's not so much that Fnatic got outdrafted or anything. It's just that one fight. That is really the only reason that game went so bad so fast. Their game plan was solid. They had a definite window where they were going to have an advantage. And if they had done well in that fight, could have been a totally different complexion. But Game 2, Fnatic, they get their Weaver for Trixie, and this time Dignitas are going with something that the Eastern teams have been doing quite often during the preliminaries, which is go for that very tanky 2 frontliners, the Lifestealer and the Dragon Knight. So to Fnatic ban the Chen here, I would probably assume so, and at the very least, actually maybe even take out both the junglers, because Enchantress and Chen both work very, very well with this lineup of Dignitas.
Yeah, Lifestealer, Dragon Knight, that's a combination. I mean, actually, Visage and Weaver, we've seen a lot, too. You know, just when it comes to heroes who synergize and either complement each other or both do a really good job at fitting into a certain mind frame or fitting into a certain time frame. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Still a little tired. Not going to lie. I don't think either of us have slept much. But in terms of fitting into a certain time frame when you want to capitalize, that's where you see these combinations come out. Weaver and Visage, very good at what they do. They pick a team apart. They're heroes that just hang around, that are always alive in fights unless you dedicate a lot of resources to trying to bring them down. Visage because of the range on his abilities. Weaver, of course, because of Shikuchi and time lapse. But and that's kind of more of this is an open lineup. We can play a gank oriented style, or we can play just a team fight oriented style, depending on when we want to try and capitalize on the potential of these heroes. Team Dignitas, on the other hand, you pick these 2 heroes because you want to go kill stuff. That's what you want to do. You just want to go gib things. So you pick a Lifestealer and a Dragon Knight, 2 of the most potent strength heroes in the mid game, and both of which have decent late game potential as well. So what becomes a challenge whenever you lead out with a 2 core like this, if you're Fnatic anyway, is you want to shut down at least one of the 2. And usually you'll see that Dragon Knight go mid in this situation with the Lifestealer, oftentimes winding up with a tri-lane farm. But Fnatic with the Weaver and the Visage, they're going to have that mobility, that early and mid-game punch in terms of magic damage in particular between Weaver's Shikuchi and Visage's Soul Assumption. That, as tanky as these heroes are, but before the BKB comes out on the Dragon Knight and Lifestealer, even with his magic immunity, you can burst them down so long as you're in proper position to do so. So both teams with a very strong front core. We see the bans go out with the Temper Saw actually given the respect ban coming out of Dignitas, and no Razor either. Razor, of course, a very wise ban. You don't want 2 heroes who are extremely based on magic immunity and damage output in the mid game to go against one of the worst heroes or one of the best heroes, I should say, in dealing with Magic Immunity, because Static Link does go through Magic Immunity and then sapping away all of that damage because you have to get in close to do your damage to begin with. We're going to see the Prophet added to Fnatic's lineup, and Rubik once again picked up by Dignitas. And after Fogg's performance in Game 1, can't really blame him.
I can't blame him either. He played phenomenal in Game 1. I want to kind of talk about something that you had just mentioned in terms of trying to keep one of the dual core down if you're Fnatic and you're against Dignitas here. I definitely agree. And the reason that I love this Nature's Prophet pick so much kind of coincides with that. Because if you look at Dignitas and you see the DK Lifestealer, you might be assuming the Death Ball push, which we've seen multiple times, just you and I casting our games. And that's not to say that it hasn't been done other places, but we've actually seen it a lot. So split push is one of the best ways to deal with that, because if you can't fight him head on, you can push 2 lanes simultaneously. Well, Dignitas kind of has to group.
Right.
They have to stick together. So they take the Prophet to secure split push with the Weaver and the Prophet. And then instead of picking up the Enchantress now, Dignitas take up a team fight hero just to make sure that they can stick to their particular game plan. Because eventually what's going to happen is push comes to shove. You're either going to have to back or you're going to have to fight Dignitas. And they want to make sure that they're going to have the advantage in that category. In Fnatic, they picked a tree, which is fantastic because no one on the side of Dignitas has any residual damage. It's all bursty. It's all like single target, Fade Bolt, Breathe Fire, Lifesteal, auto attacks, and they have a Weaver. So they can actually punish the offlane really hard here if Trixie plays it well. So I actually think that Fnatic are kind of getting the edge in this draft. Their mobility is great. They can team fight okay, but obviously Dignitas right now are looking a little bit more solid. And with Dignitas already taking out 2 really good B pushers, and of course the Razor, like you had mentioned, which is fantastic against the Lifesteal and the Dragon Knight, you knew what their game plan was. Like, why else would you ban those heroes unless you planned on doing that kind of a strat? So did they want to take the Enchantress still? Did they want to go with something else? I feel as Fnatic are actually a step ahead of Dignitas here in the draft.
I do too. That Tree and Protector pick, my first reaction was to go, wow, really? But the more I thought about it, it makes so much sense because, like you said, in terms of just their ability to outmaneuver Dignitas, and it's not even saying they will go with the Death Ball. They could just back out of it and go ahead and decide to put together maybe a bit more of a flexible lineup with their remaining 2 picks here. Most likely looking for an off lane and a secondary support at this stage, with Dragon Knight likely to go mid. But, yep, there's the Lone Druid, so there's their off laner. I actually like that a lot more. The only problem that they could run into is these 3 heroes in particular crave farm. Dragon Knight can get by for a while, on nothing but treads, BKB, if you really want to rush that. Against this team of Fnatic, he's kind of going to need to, because most of their damage output's going to be in the form of Visage and Weaver. Who knows what they're going to pick up with this last pick, because, I mean, Weaver, in many circumstances, you could look at that and be like, well, you've got your 2 lane supports. Are they just going to straight up tri-lane farm the Weaver, then get a mid, or are they going to do something a bit unorthodox and run a Weaver mid? A Weaver mid against a Dragon Knight would actually make a ton of sense. He would be able to do very well. His harassment with magic damage would totally ignore Dragon Blood, which tends to make Dragon Knight a little hard to shove around. Or do they do something a little bit more typical, maybe send Weaver to the offlane Prophet in the jungle, and do it that way, and then just pick a hard farm and carry something like that. But or even, hell, we've seen them run Prophet in mid before.
Reserve time.
But at the same time, I mean, Fnatic's lineup does have this feeling of thin to me. It feels as if they lose 1 or 2 fights early on and just allow the Lifestealer, the Dragon Knight, or the Lone Druid to get a half an item ahead, or God forbid, a full item ahead, I don't know that they're going to be able to continue to take fights. So as good as Fnatic's draft happens to be and as creative as their lineup is, and something that you pointed out so well, is all of the heroes work remarkably well with split push. Visage doesn't even have to be there. He can just send his familiars to help with split push if he wants to. So, but yeah, this is definitely going to be an interesting game to watch, because you have this 3-core lineup, very Fnatic-esque, by the way. This is the kind of thing Fnatic loves to do, going up against a very thin lineup that is very focused on what it can do, but has to execute early. Otherwise, if they fall behind, they'll never have a chance to farm their way back into it.
Well, the Lone Druid pick for me, if you're Dignitas, just says, you can't fight us anymore. You have absolutely no D-push at all. They can still last pick Enchantress if they want to, and they could just do the Enchantress, Rubik, and Lifestealer in the safe lane, DK mid, Lone Druid off lane, and be perfectly fine. Because Fnatic's try is incapable of killing a Lone Druid unless he's like horrendously out of position, and they can't even stop the bear from pulling. They don't have the heroes to do it. So he can actually get a huge chunk out of that lane, and even if he doesn't want to, he can just go farm in the woods. Or they could just jungle the Lifestealer and farm the Lone Druid in the safe lane and say, you know what, screw it. We know our mid game is going to be strong enough to where Fnatic cannot fight us ever, unless we're not as 5, and they're going to be
10
relying solely on
seconds
split push.
remaining.
But the problem now for Fnatic is between a Dragon Knight and a Lone Druid, you have
5
Demolish,
seconds
Dragon
remaining.
Form. They're going to push insanely fast.
Team
And Fnatic
Dignitas'
pick a
turn to
Viper,
pick
another hero with no deep push
Enchantress.
potential. And yeah, Dignitas are just going to take the Enchantress. This is going to be a snowmobile, or not a snowmobile, excuse me, a snowplow of pushing. Like, that's what they're going to do. They're just going to go down a lane and say, bear, creeps, hit the tower. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, Fnatic, this is going to be really fun to watch. Like, as interesting as that's going to be, or as fun as that's going to be, I'm actually more interested in seeing how Fnatic abuses this lineup they have, because it is so mobility-based. It is a very global-esque kind of a lineup whenever you have Visage and his familiars, Nature's Prophet with his... with, of course, his ability to teleport wherever he wants. A Treant Protector with the global presence of living armor. So, like, this is actually a deceptively global kind of an approach coming out of Fnatic to deal with, like you said, the snowplow, such as it is, of just let's all get together and let's just go kill buildings. Let's go play Building Demolisher or whatever the name of that game is on Steam. But yeah, with the global presence that Fnatic is going to have, they're maneuvering. It's something which classically wins them a lot of games. They're just very good at movement. They have all the flexibility in the world to do what they want with this map, and I really can't wait to see what they're able to do with that kind of capability they've drafted. But again, if they screw up once or twice, if they give away a team fight like they did in Game 1, you think Game 1 was bad? This game is going to get out of control quick if they end up feeding 4 or 5 at the end of a fight.
I just love the way that Dignitas, to me, almost baited out these picks from Fnatic. They pick the Lifestealer DK. Fnatic immediately assume the Death Ball, so they ban out the Chen. And then they take heroes to split push so they can get the edge on Dignitas. And the Dignitas like, that's fine. You didn't ban Lone Druid. And Lone Druid is obviously one of the best offlaners, period. And not only that, but he's going to make this push so unbelievably hard to stop if you're Fnatic that they're going to have to focus the bear every time they see it just to keep the tower alive. And again, none of these heroes have AoE at all on the side of Fnatic. The only AoE they actually do have is Wrath of Nature on Trixie, and he's not going to have it until 6. So you can bet the Dignitas are going to be going for some really, really early game towers. And the other thing that I'm not really sure of is, normally when you pick a Viper, you pick it to win a lane, of course, and he's going to be against a DK mid, so he should do fine. But the problem is that the Rubik Enchantress roaming is very hard for him to deal with. So if Fnatic are going to be actually running this as an aggressive tri-lane, then that makes more sense to keep their mid safe. But at the same time, he doesn't need to buy a mech, and that's typically what a Viper does because he has a Nature's Prophet. So does he want Trixie to just go full farm build and just split the map, and then Hani gets the mech anyway? I really think there are a lot of questions here for Fnatic, and we'll have to see how they play it out, I guess.
Really creative use. Look at the Treants. They're trying to block the creep wave. Controlled by the Nature's Prophet, they're trying to prevent the creep skip, but AUI obviously has no problem. Yep, now he's just going to run up an auto attack. Yeah, he should be all right. But yeah, that's just really nice. A really nice attempt to put it into a phenomenon that, yeah, they didn't want to maintain. Down here at bottom, though, we're going to have a try-on-try, and this could get very dangerous very quickly. Universe, of course, on the Lifestealer, one of the more difficult heroes to burst down in a situation like this, especially for this tri-lane. And that's probably the one thing I would not like about it, is most of their damage is going to come in the form of Shukuchi, at least for the first few levels, in the form of Shukuchi and, of course, Soul Assumption. So whenever you have a hero that has built-in magic immunity once he hits level 2, and he actually skilled Feast to begin out here instead of Open Wounds or anything else, but he'll have his magic immunity up. He's going to be tough to bring down pretty quickly. However, Dignitas has a good hero of their own to deal with this. It's going to be way too on the Enchantress. They're going to have to. They're looking for the ward now, and you can see the sentry's been dropped. The ward over to the right. The creep camp has not yet spawned. They really need to make sure they do get this ward because not only is it obviously bad for the pull camp, but it probably will make it a little bit tougher for way too to feel effective coming out to deal any kind of aggression to them. But so far, taking a look at this mid lane, Sneaking and Hani, as you mentioned, should be a very good lane for Hani, and already sitting at 9 last hits to the 6 of DK. That's only going to continue to get worse and worse. AUI going up against Trixie here. And, you know, this is one of those matchups where Trixie should be able to hang and bang for a while. If he gets up a nice set of phase boots pretty quick, he can do okay. But eventually that bear just gets to be too much, and it will just be a flat-out one lane for AUI.
They're basically conceding the fact that Aui's going to farm for keeping Universe down. Which, if you're in Fnatic's shoes, it's not the worst decision. Specifically because with Tree Armor, this tri-lane in Fnatic is nigh unkillable. It's just so hard to focus somebody, especially with these heroes. If you go in, you're going to get grave chilled. You don't have your pole camp because the sentries, both sentries are actually just barely out of range. Like if you click on them both, that ward is like hovering pretty darn close to the line, and they can't see anything. So for Fnatic, that's great because it means the supports, especially the Rubik, aren't going to get pretty much anything. Fog's still level 1. And again, the aggressive potential of this lane of Dignitas, it's not really going to do that much. They just need to make sure that Fnatic accomplish a lot down here, because if Universe still maintains a decent level of farm, then this tri lane basically has no purpose.
Right. It kind of brings to mind that that Zenith game we saw, where Zenith, they didn't die. In fact, they farmed okay on their aggressive tri lane farmer. But the problem was that he was farming at about 60% of the defensive tri-lane farmer. They didn't get any kills, so it's like, yeah, it's been stable. They haven't died, and yeah, they are getting some farm on that Naga Siren. But what ended up happening is they just hung around for 6 or 7 minutes. It's like, oh, you're now behind by virtue of the fact that you accomplished 0 with made a big sacrifice to not accomplish anything in holding down the enemy carry, either by killing him or just by preventing farm. And Fnatic's going to have to be real wary of that. This is not a lineup, again. Dignitas' lineup is not one they can really afford to be behind for long or by any real margin. If these carries get ahead, they're just going to run them over.
Yeah, and that is really just a fear. So, for me, I really think that Fnatic, even though they've picked a lineup that makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, things are going to get out of hand so unbelievably quickly if they mess up even once. It's very similar complexion to game 1. So their execution is going to have to be more or less perfect. And top lane, if Trixie ends up losing that badly, then things are going to get even harder, because the DK and the Lone Druid aren't necessarily going to teleport to different lanes, but they can sure as heck pressure their own lanes, and that's going to force a reaction out of Fnatic, which is going to relieve Universe. So there's a lot of different dynamics here that can happen very quickly, but on the bright side, Era and Hani are both sitting on top of the CS, so if you're a Fnatic fan, you're going to be pretty happy about that. And now that Hani's 5, he's got 3 points in a poison attack, which means that his orb has no cooldown, and Sneaking's time in this lane has pretty much gone from bad to worse.
And really, the success of this Viper going to have so much to do with this. And more to the point, being able to, and we talked about this, holding down a single core. And that was before they actually made it a 3-core lineup with the Lone Druid pickup. But just being able to hold one down can oftentimes give you a lot of leeway in the mid game. And, you know, the Viper pick just makes so much sense in that context, because this is a hero where they don't have to rotate around. They don't have to be doing a lot. They don't have to be taking risks that try and hold that hero down. Like you said, at this point, Sneaking is just going to have the hardest time. And you can see when he's using Breathe Fire from all the way back at his tower practically, just trying to get any CS he can. And Hani is going to be able to completely have rune control all he wants. It's going to be very difficult for the DK to do much of anything but last hit behind his own tower. And even then, we can see some abuse being poured on by Hani. So this bottom tri lane, they are going to go ahead and go for it. There's a lift on Fly, thrown back. Fog getting blown up, though. Fly will survive. At least for the moment. First blood goes to Era, and Universe is going to end up dead as well. So they end up trading 2 for 1, including the first blood, but now way 2. Even with Nature's Attendance, we'll see if it's going to be enough. Nature's Attendance makes an Enchantress so hard to kill, but he used it early, and now Living Armor allows Era to dive as much as he wants. Way 2, chewing on trees, not going to matter. That's a triple kill going to Era. The one creep looking for revenge. Don't think it's going to... Actually, that creep holding him back there at least a little bit. Is there going to be a reaction? Era taking some damage, but nobody showed up soon enough to do anything about it. So No Tail and Era both come out ahead, and Fnatic with a huge coup. And I think we can safely say that the worry that the offensive tri-lane would have no purpose, yeah, I think that worry's gone.
Well, it's honestly Dignitas, they're the ones that are at fault. They played it a little bit too aggressive. They thought because they had a tornado, the tree armor would be irrelevant and they would be able to just burst a hero down. But they went for the Visage. I mean, that's pretty much the only hero they can go for because the other targets are tree. But you don't want to play aggressive here. It's fine just to get a little bit of farm and let Era probably come out on top, as opposed to going aggressive and running the risk of basically what just happened, which is now you guaranteed lose your lane. And you are completely out-leveled. Era's almost level 6, and even though the Visage died, Fly's going to be 5 soon on top of that. So this lane for Fnatic is already more than done what it's supposed to, and Dignitas are now in a very tough position.
Sneaking with his Invis Rune is going to rotate to top. Now this could be very bad for Trixie. Dignitas trying to even the score out a little bit. Trixie will go ahead and pull back now. There was no ward on that rune, so should not know that Sneaking's there. He has pulled back, though, and playing very, very safe, not wanting to get too far forward at all. And we see, well, now that Way2, I don't know that Way2's shown his face here in mid or not. If he has, then And that makes a ton of sense that obviously the Prophet says, hey, there's a mid missing DK, and there was a rune up not long ago. Perhaps I should duck on back and just be patient.
Yeah, this is really good play by Trixie. Very patient. He doesn't have any reason to go to the lane. It's like he can jungle if he wants to, and if he sees Aoi leave the lane, then he knows something's up. There's no reason for Aoi to leave a free farm lane, and that would pretty much guaranteed mean that one of either the supports or the mid are trying to find him, and clearly sneaking wasn't on the map anyway, so just good communication for Fnatic. They just know what their game plan is. No reason to play it overconfident or do anything risky when they already have basically 2 lanes that are won just by virtue of the matchup. I would say even on paper, Fnatic's tri-lane is going to beat Dignitas just because of Dignitas' inability to play aggressive on it, and that's why I was expecting them to just kind of sit back and farm. Let the lone druid win top, let sneaking at least get to 6 or 7, and then try to do something. Don't go for something crazy first just because you have a creep that might counter tree armor. It's like, I feel like that decision might have cost them not just the lane, but their entire early game plan.
Right now we can see the farm is getting way out of control. Era sitting at 36 CS coming up on 8.5 minutes. Not bad by any standard in the offensive tri-lane, but when you compare it to what Universe has managed to accomplish in that amount of time, how about 17? At least probably a third of which has been jungle farm, that he has literally just abandoned the lane and having to jungle now and try to find a way to do a way to just get things back on track. The Druid, by the way, for Dignitas is in great shape. If there's anything that they have going for him, it's the fact that AUI is in phenomenal shape. Now Trixie going to surround himself and try to TP away, and the Centaur will barely miss. Centaur Stomp just run 1 second too late, and the preemptive living armor trying to keep this tower up. Doesn't look like they're going to challenge it. Instead, just going to try to push down here on bottom. And but yeah, Era in great shape. He's already got 1,100 gold. He's got Trez. He's got his Aquila. And a Weaver who gets ahead early is one of those heroes that can just take a game over.
Especially against a lineup like this. I mean, they do have some heroes who can focus them. You're going to have Telekinesis, Dragonite Stun, and things like that. So it could be a bit risky. And Fnatic, they're going to very valiantly defend their tier 1 tower and might even get a bear kill out of it, which is a pretty darn big deal. That thing's worth 300 gold, man. And who actually got it? Looks like Hani did, so that's 300 free gold for him. And now, because Dignitas were the first ones to move, they will be able to defend their own tier 1. But to be honest, Dignitas needed that tower kill more than Fnatic did. And not only that, but there's a tree. So if they can't push that lane again soon, it's going to be at 100% health the next time they see it. Whereas the damage done to the tier 1 for Fnatic bottom, that damage is permanent. So definitely an okay trade if you're Fnatic.
Yeah, sneaking did do a lot of damage to that mid tower though, but like you said, tree armor kind of makes that irrelevant unless you're able to follow it up very soon. But yeah, this tower, and that was just we just got a good look at how much push power DK actually does have. That's a DD. He's gonna just TP away, knowing he's in trouble. Era unable to clean it up. That's actually a really heads up play. As soon as he saw Era and recognized the DD, knew that there was no way he was going to outrun him. Dragon told him and TP'd away, so very gutsy. Down at bottom, though, Fnatic continues to pour on the push as much as they possibly can. AUI sitting on about 1,700 gold. He could get his minus right now if he, well, not right this second, but very soon, given this is now an unoccupied lane. But Fnatic, and this is kind of what I was talking about. This global presence kind of a lineup, a deceptively global lineup, especially once Visage hits 6, which he actually has now. But yeah, this is a lineup that I think is really going to show us just how capable Fnatic is of just taking over and dominating a map.
Well, I gotta say, Fnatic, game 1, they had a very similar game plan in terms of their early game aggression, but it didn't quite follow through. This game has gone pretty much to a T of what they wanted, and they're going to dive Trixie here, but there's going to be reaction.
And here comes one TP that's going to be Fly, just Fly. Bear is going to be caught with the Grave Chill. Now another one's going to come in. There's a root on Trixie. AUI going to turn and go for the kill. And another reaction in. That's going to be Hani. Trixie does manage to make it away. They're going to go after the Bear at least one more time. It's slowed down by Hani. However, on the backside of things, looks like Enchantress is able to track down one more kill. Now Era wants to re-engage. Sneaking's there along with Fog. And Living Armor going to allow him to go to town. Fog trying to TP away and will be able to do so. But Fnatic losing a couple of heroes there, so Dignitas able to not only get in and get the job done, but to get out without losing anything.
The handful of kills are definitely a good thing, but we also have to remember that this is going to be a battle of map control, especially for Fnatic. They want to get the most map control they possibly can, because the later the game goes, the more difficult it's going to be to deal with the tri-core, basically, of Dignitas. And when they start forming up as 5 and they get their core items, Fnatic aren't going to have the easiest time in the world stopping them, even now, even though the early game has actually gone pretty well for them. And Viper, what did he just buy? He bought something. Okay, he's going Vanguard, actually, which is like pretty strange. Well, not that strange, I suppose.
Old school.
Yeah, if you're considering the fact that they're just going to go super heavy push into you, Vanguard's not a terrible choice, but I do feel like a mech probably would have been better suited for this team, considering Nature's Prophet isn't actually buying one himself. He went for the mech.
And we're going to have Fly engaged upon here in mid. Nope, never mind. Looks like they are going to go ahead and back off at the moment. I don't mind the Vanguard so much, if for no other reason than the fact that it's 3 melee heroes. Well, 4 if you count the bear and the druid. But yeah, it's 4 heroes that are going to want to be blowing that Viper up. So that plus his corrosive skin is going to make him pretty damn tough to kill and very easy for him to kite those heroes. So even when they do catch up with him, they're not going to be doing that much damage. Sneaking and Era, trading blows up here at top. There's going to be a rotation of Way Too Sexy and going to look to catch Era, obviously catching a Weaver, easier said than done. Here in mid, Fnatic doing what chip damage they can onto this tower. And Era hanging right by the tower, just trying to buy a little bit of time. We'll see if there's going to be any other reaction. Fly is walking up there. Now here comes the TP. Sneaking at half health, Way Too a little bit higher, but nonetheless not going to pursue it out. So everything kind of stabilizing once again.
As I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Vanguard choice, just because we don't get to see it too often. Actually, Hane mid's going to be dying here, so yeah. He fed a kill, which is definitely good for Dignitas, but when you buy a Vanguard, it's very inexpensive in terms of what it gives you. Like, the health is definitely great, the damage block is great, but it's a greedy item in the sense that it does nothing for your team, which is why so many Vipers actually go for a mech. And again, nobody on the side of Fnatic's in the ballpark of being able to afford it, and they certainly could use it for when Dignitas group up as 5 and actually get more free kills probably here. Oh, nope, they're just going to decide to back up.
And Living Armor was actually just stolen by Fog. Big steal there. Just having that as an equalizer, even if just for a little while, quite the big deal. And that's something he'll immediately put to use, healing up some of these towers, like this top tier 1. Would not be bad to heal up. AUI, by the way, is skipping Midas. And AUI generally does not skip Midas. He is going straight for a Radiance Rush, and he's damn close to his Relic. About 100 gold. And he's going to have his Relic up, and certainly won't be long after that, but he gets the recipe. An early Radiance against this Fnatic team is going to be devastating. They are not a survivable team. They are not a team who, outside of maybe the Weaver, is anyone going to build a BKB? You can on a Prophet if you want to. You can on a Viper. But generally speaking, if a Viper's going to tank up, he wants to do it with a Scepter. You just try to get his HP up and let his other abilities keep him alive. And Fnatic going to go ahead and rotate top, and this is a mass smoke gig. Way Too Sexy is there along with AUI. Killing off AUI here would be a pretty big deal. He is also, oh no, never mind. He already bought his Relic, so his gold's already spent. And AUI ducking out. Here's Trixie TPing right on top of him, and AUI just resigned to his fate, it seems. He's going to go ahead and take it right on the chin, but that's all right. Again, he had already spent all that gold. I'm pretty sure he bought it. What did he spend his gold on?
The Relic.
Oh.
It was on the bear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was on the bear, not him when he died, so you can't actually check the bear.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something they could implement. Valve, let us check the bear when the Lone Druid's dead. Bam. But it's actually a really good thing that they killed the Lone Druid, because now Dignitas are incapable of stopping the push top, and they even forced a glyph on top of it.
Right.
And no one's really in that good of a position to counter push except for sneaking, which Fnatic will be able to defend their tier 1 bottom easily. Like, they could just TP somebody now without even wasting a glyph and probably defend it.
Yep, gonna be Trixie that comes down. Trixie not skipping the Midas, pick that up quickly. Worth mentioning that sneaking is level 11 now. Level 2 Elder Dragon formed has the same damage over time, but it just applies it to an AoE as well. And his push power is actually really good. We can see how well he's pushing. They are going to be forced to spin the glyph to try and keep it up. And Fnatic gonna go ahead and rotate bottom, but yeah, as soon like at this point, I almost feel like Dignitas is in a holding pattern. Just get AUI his Relic, or not his Relic, but his Radiance, and then let's just make them run into us, because they are going to just burn to death. And now we're going to have Sneaking sprouted in, but no other stun, and once again, TPs himself to safety.
Yeah, this is one of the banes of Fnatic, is the only stuns they have are Overgrowth and Familiars. And Familiars aren't really the fastest things in the world, so it's kind of difficult to get them into position and be able to reliably hit stuns in some situations, especially if people are ready for it. But they're going to be going for Roshan here. Fnatic probably going to get this. I can't imagine Dignitas are going to be able to react fast enough to stop it, and they don't have any intentions of doing so either. But again, this top tower and even bottom tower are going to be getting so much health back over the time that it takes Dignitas to form up and push, that the tower is going to be full health by the time they get there. And they're not going to have Glyph, but they're going to have more than enough time to walk across the map and maybe take this fight with their newfound agents. So yeah, Trixie's already making his way there. I would assume Fnatic defend this. Or counter push. They could do that too.
Coming back again to the value of that Radiance, the Weaver is actually getting he's going to be getting his Desolator up right off the bat. They know they need damage to be able to deal with all of the damage output, both bursty and sustained, coming out of Dignitas now. And, that's really the big deal of AUI getting ahead. As the Bear is now as reliable sustained damage as you're going to see, and the definition of sustained damage is the mass damage, the mass magic damage you absorb at every tick of every second whenever that Radiance is complete. So you have a bunch of heroes that even with living armor, it's just not going to matter. You're not tanking up the Weaver. Nature's Prophet going to Shadow Blade. Viper didn't, and this is where, coming back to your point, not buying that mech could end up being quite a big deal, because that mech is one of the few ways you can. Oh, hang on, Fog going to end up picked off as Fnatic, just showing off their own push power, and now going to try to react if he can. But wow, he actually just overgrowth and got no one. Kind of whiffed on it. But yeah, not having that mech, I think, is actually going to end up being a big bugaboo for them, unless they can get it up quickly before we start to see that Radiance burn really come into effect.
Well, he's got the money for it, but he's not buying it, so I seriously doubt that he's going to be buying the mech now. He might just be going for an Ags, honestly. He could even go for something like a Manta. It's really nice against Lone Druid and Lifestealer. You can Manta the open wounds or the root, depending on what the situation calls for. But just in general, Fnatic, they've pulled themselves back into the game in a big way. Again, Roshan sneaks are huge in these situations, and so is catching sneaking completely off guard. But do they actually have detection? Yep, they do.
Tried the Shadow Amulet, tried to be cute about it. Will end up taking the short ride home. 19 minutes in, we got 11 kills on the board. How about we take a look at the gold graph? 5,000 right now in favor of Fnatic. So Fnatic has certainly been putting this their early team fight, and again, their early mobility and early global presence and movement capabilities to good use. In fact, they're coming up with 7,500 now. The experience a much closer affair, but again, it's the first big fight that we see, because right now they're beginning to group and push as more than 2 or 3. The split push isn't really what's happening at the moment. Dignitas at some point is going to show up and take a 5-man fight, especially now that Radiance is done. And that's really going to be the tail of the tape. That's going to let us know where this Fnatic squad actually stands in their ability to take fights. And here we go. Visage Familiar, stun out Fog. They're going to try to blow him up right off the bat. And now the engagement. Moving on in, we're going to see stuns on both sides. Just look at that Radiance burn chew through their health. The overgrowth locks him in place. Universe forced to use the Infest. We're going to see Era caught out and stunned out. He will be able to Shikuchi away after a little help from living armor. Now No Tail cleaned up very easily. Sneaking, going to town. And Era just has to keep on running. Again, that's what they can't afford to have happen. Fly's going to probably end up, dead, no doubt about it. And Sneaking ends up with a triple kill by the time all is said and done. But yeah, you can see it from the moment they started. The supports, even the Visage hanging in the back, nowhere near direct damage, was just having visible chunks of his health just vanish every single second. They cannot afford to have these fights draw out that way at this stage. And really what's the awful part about that is Dignitas has a phenomenal team at that. They have 3 of the tankiest core heroes in the entire game.
And that's why I was really confused as to why Fnatic decided to overcommit to that fight so hard. I mean, Era Shikuchi's behind the tower to try to go in. I don't think that they remember the Dignitas 5-man is stronger than yours, and it's not because their team fight has any crazy combos. They're just really hard to kill.
Yep. And here we go. They're going to come back out. Visage Familiar is going to stun out AUI. And they got fogged as well. Now they're going to move, though. And Nature's Attendants helping out just a little bit. Trixie's got eyes on him. And AUI going to be sprouted in. They may get him. They will. Throwing out the Soul Assumption. Visage securing a very nice return kill. It did cost them at least 1 tower and a lot of damage on another one. Actually, never mind. I always forget. You forget. It's tree. Never mind. That's a full health tower. Doesn't matter what they did. But 8-9. Dignitas making up a ton of ground with that fight, and yeah, that basically cut the gold lead in half that Fnatic had accrued and brought the experience back into favor of Dignitas.
Well, we also have to remember this Aegis is still up for a bit longer, and Fnatic, they're going for what they went for last time, and since Aoi is dead, he's not going to be anywhere near in position to do anything about this push, so this tower is pretty much going to be sacrificed. Even if they glyph, I don't really think it's going to matter. There's a DD on sneaking, but he has absolutely no mana and no TP, so caught out a little bit. They might still try it, though. He's walking his way down there. They are going to use the glyph. And Universe is going to have a really hard time engaging all by himself.
The Visage play has really been excellent, by the way. Those Visage familiars have been very active from Fly. He's done a phenomenal job at just, and it's such a small thing, but just being able to delay Dignitas grouping up to maybe try to punish you for taking that tower. Even, it looked like Dignitas, even if they weren't able to defend, might have wanted to pursue. But just the little stun, shutting those heroes down, slowing them down on the way to the tower, maybe that's enough to make them think twice. He's just done such a great job. In fact, they got a kill on AUI. And in consequence of AUI's death, got that tower because the Visage Familiars stunned him in chain in tandem as he tried to retreat. That bought enough time for Trixie to get into position and sprout him in. So just really good play out of Fly, and I love a well-played Visage. Whenever you see someone just do the little things right, just makes you happy. Yeah, and Visage is one of those heroes where a good familiar stun can be the difference between actually winning a fight and not winning one. And wow, this bear is about to be ultra sad. And I believe, yep, that's bear number 2. So Aoi actually doesn't have his Radiance bear for another minute, and Hani gets a free 300 gold. So they need to be really careful about how you're using your bear in this matchup, because if it gets caught out, it will die. That is one of the strengths of heroes like Viper. No matter what, you're never going to be able to recall it, because even if he doesn't hit it for like 2 or 3 seconds, poison attack actually just lasts that duration anyway. But yeah, I think Fnatic are actually in pretty fine shape here. Next couple of minutes, Roshan's going to be respawning again. I would assume that Dignitas are going to try to prioritize that. I think Universe might be able to have his armlet done by that time, and that's when the tankiness of Dignitas is going to go up quite a bit more. And even Sneaking sitting on 2,300 gold, so if he wants to, he can go for that BKB, and obviously he can maybe finish his drums if he wants. I think BKB, though, is probably going to be the choice. Universe does go ahead and finish off the armlet. Something that I just noticed about the Enchantress way too. Seems to have switched gears. He picked up the point booster to begin with, which is not bad to just pick up naked on a hero like an Enchantress. Eventually, you can finish it. Oh, hang on, we're going to have a battle up at top. Fog in bad shape. Trixie trying to chase him down. Sneaking once again. That's the 3rd time he's done that this match. Just looked him in the eye and said, oh, you guys don't have stuns. I'll see you later. But that's actually an Orchid coming out now from the Prophet. I like that pickup a lot, and we'll get into that in a minute. But way too shifting gears and going away from the Scepter build, which is obviously one would think with the point booster pickup initially. Now adding the Buckler and most likely on his way to the Mechanism. That plays into what we've been talking about, extending these fights, giving your team some more longevity, and making Fnatic just sit and deal with the overall sustained damage, in particular of AUI, both with auto attacks and with that Radiance burn. And Fnatic's working on one as well. Looks like, who was it? Visage actually has picked up the headdress, so he's actually not too far from his Buckler. So a little ways to go, but Mech very important for both. They're going to get the bear again. The bear one more time picked off. AUI, as well as he's played, he has not been very cautious with his little panda buddy.
Yeah, he's actually given the other team, I think, what, 1,200 gold?
Yeah.
Just for bears? Like that. He can't let that keep happening. And it's going to continue to be a problem, because if he doesn't have a bear, and better yet, if he doesn't have a bear and his secondary bear up when Fnatic push, if he ever gets it out of position, it's going to die, and then they're not going to be able to defend. He is probably one of the most pivotal heroes on his team for being able to defend pushes, because that bear is such a deterrent for Fnatic just walking in and just hitting a tower, especially considering Era has his Desolator and Trixie's right-click damage is starting to become relatively substantial too. So I'm really kind of concerned for Dignitas. They're not really getting anything done here. Dire side advantage in terms of Roshan going to be going in favor of Fnatic as well, so they can go for the next Roshan fairly easily, and they're already dewarding basically everything in the area. Granted, Dignitas has the ward on the safest side pretty much, so they will be able to see if Fnatic are going for it. Can they win a fight? Because without double bear, it's very, very difficult to take 5-on-5 engagements when you're behind.
Dignitas, as you mentioned, it's one of the. I feel like Dignitas is really in a decent position here, but I can't disagree with anything you say. I mean, Fnatic just has so much going for them, and again, it's in that very narrow way, and I don't mean necessarily narrow as a pejorative. I mean it simply as they have some things they do very, very well, and they have some things that Dignitas simply has no good answer for. And they're not as well-rounded as Dignitas' lineup is. They're not as robust. They're not as hard to deal with in these 5-on-5 situations. But they're just so damn good at what they can do that it's hard to look at this team and not feel like they're in a really good situation. I mean, obviously the gold graph will tell us that, as well as the experience. But it's all going to come down to play. We're going to have Roshan coming back up soon. Dignitas actually rotating away from the pit. And they have to know he's coming back up. There's no way they forgot to write down the time at the prelims. So I guess maybe just willing to sack him.
Yeah, they can't really fight. They're too scared. I mean, what do you do when the other team... I mean, Hani's going to have a BKB almost. There's Yasha Deso on Era, Blink Dagger on the tree, so they could easily fight in the pit if they had to. And if they prematurely use Rage on Lifestealer and he gets rooted in place, he's going to be useless. Same can be said for the Bear or the DK because he's going AC and not BKB. So, I mean, Fnatic, this game has pretty much been all them. And again, this, for Dignitas, if they don't win, they are in huge trouble because then they're relying on pretty much luck. And honestly, I don't even think it's mathematically possible for them to place top 4 if they lose this game.
A lot on the line for both of these teams, and no worse feeling than, and if it's even possible at all, as you had mentioned, if it is possible, no worse feeling than having your fate in the hands of someone else. Right now, Dignitas, with their destinies under their own control, gonna have to find a way to fight back into this. Fnatic, though, a team that many had written off. I mean, looking back, many had written them off so hard. Just said, hey, you know, they passed them up, all this stuff whenever they went through that period of, like, I don't know, something like 6 weeks where they only played together as 5, like a half dozen times or something silly like that. But they're peaking at the right time. They went to their boot camp and had a chance to find their rhythm. A rhythm they had been lacking, both online and on LAN, for quite some time. It's been a relatively low kill count. 17 kills in a 29-minute game as we approach 30 minutes in. Again, the gold graph now beginning to flirt with 5-digit territory. The experience certainly following that trend as well. And Fnatic with that fresh Aegis, as well as an MKB up on Hani now. Perhaps looking to get the push together. Fly is actually not far away from his mech at all. Only has to another 200 gold or so. He'll have the mechanism. And Era, as you had mentioned, really just hitting quite hard. He's actually not far from having his Manta style done.
Radiant structures are
Yeah, and once he gets that, again, another way to escape roots, another way to escape open wounds. I actually misspoke, by the way. If Fnatic win here, then LGD have to lose if Dignitas want to stay in the top 4. That's basically how it works. So thank you to the guy in chat who corrected me. I double-checked just to make sure, so yeah, he was right. But it's still, like you said, you don't want to make it so other people dictate where you're going to be in the bracket. You want to be in the upper bracket, so you have double chances basically to stay in if you do end up losing your first series in the main stage. So Fnatic still looking pretty damn strong here in Game 2. Trixie's got 4,300 gold, man. He could just buy a Hex soon. That is so scary for Dignitas, because if he gets a Hex, they can actually initiate with a Shadowblade Hex. And not really anybody on the side of Dignitas is sitting too pretty in the money department, even though they do have sentries. It's just the threat, you know, it's the threat of having that initiation that's going to make them pretty much sit inside their base. Fnatic, at this stage, have almost full map control. I wouldn't be surprised to see them pick up a gem sometime soon and just start dewarding the entire map, so Dignitas really don't feel like they can actually leave their base. Now, if the game goes on long enough, maybe Dignitas can come back on the back of the 3-core, but as it stands right now, the farm difference for Fnatic is starting to get way out of control.
And we can already see Dignitas just playing as scared as you can imagine. All the way back under their tier 3. Here comes the mechanism complete on Fly. And Fnatic really, I mean, this is their game. They can do whatever the hell they want. Universe and AUI's Bear doing their own thing down here in bottom lane. They have to see it. Trixie's actually got eyes on them. We'll see how he wants to do this. Is he actually going to try to orchid him? He's taking Radiance burn damage, so he's going to have to hustle out. Yeah. Phase boots away. But yeah, they're going to realize and go for it. They're going to rush down, and the Deso MKB doing some quite nice damage. But the slow push stalling at least for the moment. And down here, they're still kind of just going back and forth. Obviously, Universe can try to TP home. He's working on a... Looks like he's going to be getting a basher. He's picked up the Javelin, but so far the slow push of Fnatic, quite effective.
And again, this is the same idea that we were talking about yesterday. We have a team who is just asphyxiating the other, because regardless of whether not how long they sit together, they know that Dignitas can't get anything either, and they're ahead anyway. So you're just staying ahead. And the longer you do that, the harder it's going to be for Dignitas to mount a push outside of their base, because in reality, even if Fnatic want to split up and go to the jungle instead, they're going to be effectively utilizing the map far more than what Dignitas are capable of doing at this stage. And with the Manta finished on Era, the Aegis up, this might be the opportunity they were looking for to try to crack the base. Still no glyph either.
Here we go. Era going to rush up using living armor to help tank through the damage. There's Soul Assumption doing a nice chunk of damage and sneaking. And they are going to go ahead and pull back, meching it back to full health. And just, yeah, I mean, really, there's nothing else to say. Fnatic just playing this as methodical as humanly possible. And it's actually kind of funny. It's like all those items we were talking about were almost done. They just said, that's fine. We can finish him right outside of your base just as easy as we can finish him farming our jungle. That's exactly what they did, just forcing Dignitas to stick together. Era, though, taking a bit of damage. Now down to half health. We'll need to go ahead and pull back. Mechanism off cooldown in 15 seconds. No tail. We'll also have living armor here shortly. And Trixie, perhaps going to mess with Universe a bit. We do see AUI has picked up. Wow, Scotty. We talked about this yesterday. People are just building Scotties, man. They just decide to build Scotties randomly now. And look at this. Universe taking a lot of damage. This will be an off carry. Nature's Prophet now. But some big items coming out for Dignitas as well. Dignitas again getting a Maelstrom up on AUI. And we just saw the Assault Cuirass done on the Dragon Knight. So hope Fnatic didn't stall out a little too long here.
Well, honestly, Scotty is not that bad of a choice, considering what they're up against, right? You have a Lifestealer who can be kited with the Scotty, even through Rage. Lone Druid's kind of the same, and if you start hitting the Bear with Scotty and the Viper slow, it's going nowhere. Like, that thing is going to go backwards. That's how slow it's going to be. And then you also have a DK who, outside of Dragon form, is very easily kiteable as well. So it's not a terrible choice. I just thought he would go Hex, because you can pretty much isolate a hero and kill it with a Hex. But they don't necessarily have to do that either, because they are really so far ahead at this stage. And when you have a Prophet and this much of the map to abuse, normally it's hard enough to come back. But when you're against a Prophet, he just makes it a nightmare, because his income just skyrockets when he can use this much space on the map.
Speaking of income skyrocketing, we can see it's plummeting, actually. Skyrocketing in the form of plummeting to the bottom in favor of Fnatic. And wow, we're going to hear an engagement. Yep, Trixie caught out. And now we're going to have a reinitiation. Fnatic cleaning one out. Trixie trying to make a run after Universe. Fnatic just way too mobile. Got there to help him out. And with the Dragon Knight now down, does DK have buyback? He does not. Not even close to it. So this, I mean, without that DK, I mean, yes, they are in good shape, but the Lifestealer single target and the Lone Druid single target, and that's tough to do up against this kind of a team composition. We are going to see that he does manage to steal the ulti from Viper, excuse me, the Viper Strike. But there we go, Universe going to be sprouted in. They're going to try to kite him out. There's those Visage Familiars paying for themselves, and Universe died solely because of that Visage, no doubt about it. The Bear once again just going to drop. Great play from Fly. I mean, it was great teamwork all the same. He was being kited. He was caught with a Sprout. But having the Familiars in place, stunning him just long enough to allow them to pick him off. This is for sure going to be a set of racks, as there's just no way they can fight without the LS. And
Radiant's bottom barracks are under attack.
The melee racks will drop. The Bear again. This is the second Bear. He's going to lose it for free. Now sneaking engaged upon. They did a beautiful overgrowth. Could not ask for more out of No Tail in that situation. He was patient with it, waited on it, got the two heroes he wanted. That's all three cores down, two of which are down for 50 seconds. And yeah, there's no way an Enchantress and a Rubik are going to be able to prevent this. This is going to be at least two sets of racks. Check that. Era says, nope, it's going to be three. It's Megas, because they're going to rotate to mid now. And that's going to guarantee Fnatic making it into the top bracket.
They're really well played by Fnatic, honestly. I had my doubts for a while, because their lanes, especially bottom, was so heavily emphasized that they absolutely needed success. And Dignitas kind of just handed it to them, let's be honest. They walked in, they wanted to say, all right, we're going to play aggressive. We want to try to take a win from a lane that we should pretty much just on paper lose no matter what. And they paid for it dearly. Like, if they just played passive and they farmed, it would have been a lot closer than losing your tri-lane so hard by getting triple killed and letting the support get to level 5 almost instantly. I mean, they could have just played it safe and been way ahead for it. And terms of what they actually ended up doing. And as well as they utilized the map for as long as they could, Fnatic just smothered them eventually. They had way too much of a gold lead. A couple of team fights, a Roshan or two later, and that's pretty much all she wrote for Dignitas. So now their fate is pretty much up to the second game, I think, between LGD and Navi that's going on right now. And apparently there's a Dendy Pudge.
Oh, that's fun. That's always nice to know that your fate is in the hands of a Dindy Pudge. I'm sure that's a wonderful feeling. I'd be throwing my guts up. But Dignitas and Fnatic conclude their run here in the TI3 preliminaries. Fnatic has punched their ticket to the top bracket when we move towards the big stage in Seattle starting in just a couple of days. Dignitas still has a chance to wind up there, but the North American squad got to be watching Dindy Pudge and hoping he's pretty